Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Book Summary Podcast.
Yes.
Today we're diving deep into Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. It's a book that has
Oh, yes.
sparked a ton of debate and honestly some controversy.
Right.
It's got a bit like Machiavelli's The Prince for the modern age.
I agree with that.
But before we get too far, if you're finding this deep dive helpful, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more insightful book summaries just like this one.
So what I think is so fascinating about the 48 Laws of Power is that it really doesn't shy away from the realities of power dynamics. Greene pulls from a lot of historical figures like Napoleon, Sun Tzu, even con artists.
Oh, wow.
To illustrate these timeless strategies for understanding how power works.
Yeah, it's like Greene went on a treasure hunt through history, collecting these little nuggets of wisdom about how people gain and wield power, and then he compiled it all into this kind of power playbook.
Yeah, and the thing is, whether we like it or not, power dynamics are at play in every aspect of our life.
Right.
From our personal relationships to our careers to the broader social and political landscape.
Right.
So even if you don't aspire to be some master manipulator, understanding these laws can help you navigate these dynamics more effectively.
Exactly. It's like learning the rules of the game even if you don't plan on becoming a professional athlete.
Right.
Knowing the rules gives you an advantage whether you're playing offensively or defensively.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump into the first law
Right.
that we're going to unpack today, and that is Law 6, court attention at all costs. This one feels like it's tailor-made for the age of social media.
Yeah.
Everyone's vying for attention, trying to stand out from the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Greene uses a story of Count Lustig, this notorious con man, to illustrate this law. And what's so interesting about Lustig is not just that he sought attention, it's how he did it.
Right. He cultivated this air of mystery around himself.
Yeah.
And he would kind of like let slip these tantalizing hints about his past, about his connection, but he would never fully reveal the truth.
Right.
And this created this knowledge gap that people just had to fill, that were drawn to him. They wanted to be in on the secret.
Yeah, it's like he understood that information is a form of currency, and the less freely you give it away, the more valuable it becomes.
Exactly. And Greene argues that this principle applies to personal branding as well. So if you want to stand out, you need to create a sense of intrigue, a desire for people to learn more about you.
So don't just tell people who you are and what you do. Give them a glimpse, a taste.
Yeah.
And make them come to you to find out more.
It's about sparking that curiosity, about making yourself a puzzle that people want to solve.
I think that's a really important point. Especially in today's world where everyone is bombarded with information. If you can pique someone's curiosity, make them want to learn more, you've already won half the battle.
That's right.
Okay, so let's move on to Law 7, which is get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit.
Okay.
Ooh, this one sounds a little Machiavellian.
It can be, for sure.
Right.
But I don't think Greene is necessarily advocating for, like, outright deception or exploitation.
Right.
Instead, he's highlighting a principle that's often at play in successful collaborations.
Okay, so it's not about being lazy or taking advantage of people, but it's about leveraging the talents of others to achieve a common goal.
Exactly. And he uses the example of Thomas Edison,
Okay.
who was brilliant at assembling these teams of talented inventors and engineers. He would give them direction, resources, and inspiration.
Yeah.
And they would do the hard work of bringing his visions to life.
Right, and then Edison would get all the glory.
Well, that's where the ethical considerations come in. Greene acknowledges that taking credit for the work of others can be problematic, especially if it's done without acknowledging their contributions.
Right.
But he also argues that in the realm of power, perception is often more important than reality.
So it's not just about doing the work. It's about being seen as the one who did the work.
Right. And this is where things get a bit murky.
Right.
There's a difference between strategic delegation and outright exploitation.
So how do we apply this law ethically? If we're working with a team, how do we make sure that everyone gets the credit they deserve?
It's about being generous with your praise, about highlighting the contributions of your team members, even if you're ultimately the one that gets the public recognition.
It's about sharing the spotlight, even if you're the one holding the microphone.
Exactly.
I like that.
Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about a law that might seem counterintuitive at first.
Okay.
It's Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim.
Okay, this one sounds intriguing. So we're not just talking about being honest and generous, but we're talking about using these qualities strategically.
Right. Green argues that a well-timed act of honesty or generosity can lower people's defenses, making them more susceptible to your influence.
It's like a Trojan horse, right?
Yes.
You offer something genuine, something that it seems valuable, but hidden inside is your own agenda.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, cool.
And the book even uses the example of Cesar Borgia, who is known for his ruthlessness, but also for his ability to disarm people with these strategic acts of kindness.
So it's not about being a good person. It's about using the appearance of goodness to your advantage.
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that. I think Green acknowledges that this law can be used for manipulative purposes, but he also suggests that it can be a tool for building trust and rapport.
So it's about reading the situation, understanding the motivations of the people you're dealing with, and using honesty and generosity in a way that benefits both parties.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're being genuine while also advancing your own goals.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of courting attention, of leveraging the talents of others, and of using selective honesty and generosity to disarm your rivals.
Right.
What about when you need to ask for help? What's the best approach?
Law 13 tackles that.
All right.
When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude.
Okay.
In other words, don't remind them of what you've done for them in the past. Focus on what they stand to gain by helping you now.
So instead of saying, remember that time I helped you move, now it's your turn, we should be saying, hey, if we team up on this project, we could both see some serious benefits.
Precisely. It's about framing the request in a way that benefits them. The book tells the story of how Yelu Chucai saved China from Genghis Khan, not by pleading for mercy, but by appealing to Khan's desire for wealth through taxation. He essentially argued, if you destroy China, you'll have nothing to tax if you let it thrive. You'll get rich.
Wow, that's incredibly savvy. It's like he turned the whole situation around by understanding what motivated Genghis Khan.
And that's the key takeaway from this law. It's not enough to just ask for what you want. You need to understand what motivates the other person and frame your request in a way that aligns with their self-interest.
So it's about being persuasive, about understanding the psychology of persuasion.
Exactly.
Before we jump to the next law, if you're finding this breakdown helpful, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more insightful book summaries like this.
Now, this next law is all about gathering intel. Law 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy.
Ooh, this one sounds a little sneaky.
It can be, but it's not necessarily about being malicious. It's about gathering information about your rivals or your competitors or whoever, not through like overt confrontation.
But through getting close to them, becoming a trusted source.
So it's like playing the long game, building trust, so you can gain access to valuable information.
Exactly. The book uses the example of the art dealer Joseph Duveen, who wanted to sell paintings to Andrew Mellon. But Mellon wasn't interested in meeting with him. So what did Duveen do?
What did he do?
He infiltrated Mellon's staff.
Oh, wow.
He basically cultivated relationships with people who had access to Mellon. And they provided him with these insights into Mellon's tastes, his habits, his weaknesses.
It's like he built a network of informants without them even realizing it. That's brilliant, but also it kind of raises some ethical questions.
Absolutely. This law walks a fine line. There's a difference between being observant and being manipulative.
So it's about being aware of the information that's available to you, but using it ethically and responsibly.
Exactly.
Okay, this next law hits close to home, especially for those of us who tend to be introverts a little bit.
Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous.
It's tempting to withdraw when you feel threatened, but isolation can actually make you more vulnerable.
It's like that saying, no man is an island.
Exactly. We need to be connected to others, not just for support, but for information, for resources, for survival. The book contrasts the isolation of the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huangdi, with the strategic mingling of Louis XIV. Qin Shi Huangdi built this magnificent palace and basically shut himself off from the world.
Oh, wow.
He ended up losing touch with his people and his empire crumbled.
Wow.
On the other hand, Louis XIV built Versailles not just as a palace, but as a way to keep his court under constant observation. He understood that being surrounded by people, even potential rivals, could be a form of protection.
It's fascinating how those two examples show the contrasting outcomes of isolation versus connection.
Yeah.
It makes me think about how crucial networking is in today's world. You know, it's not just about schmoozing or trying to climb the social ladder. It's about building genuine connections with people who can offer different perspectives and insights.
And opportunities.
Right? So instead of retreating into our fortresses, we should be building bridges, reaching out to others, and cultivating relationships that can empower us.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about the dangers of isolation. Now, let's talk about a law that's all about focusing your energy.
Okay.
Law 23, concentrate your forces. Green argues that spreading yourself too thin can actually weaken your impact. It's better to focus your energy on a specific goal, specific area of expertise, a specific network of influence.
It's like that saying, jack of all trades, master of none.
Right, or as Green puts it, concentrate your forces.
Exactly.
He uses the example of the Rothschild family, who built their financial empire by creating this incredibly tight-knit, exclusive network. They shared information, resources, connections, amplifying their power through collaboration.
It's like they created a force multiplier by pooling their resources and expertise.
And this principle applies beyond finance.
In
any field focus and specialization can give you an edge.
Absolutely.
Don't try to be everything to everyone. Figure out what you're good at, what you're passionate about. And pour your energy into that.
And dominate that space.
It's about quality over quantity, depth over breadth. I like that.
It's about understanding that true power comes from focus. From channeling your energy into something meaningful and impactful.
That's a really powerful message, especially in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with distractions and pulled in a million different directions.
Absolutely.
It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and the constant striving for more. But sometimes the most effective strategy is to slow down. To simplify, to focus on what truly matters.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we move on to the next law, let me remind you to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're finding this deep dive into the 48 laws of power helpful.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about a law that's all about taking action. Law 28, enter action with boldness.
Okay, this one sounds a little more daring. Is it about taking risks, about being fearless?
It is about taking risks. But it's also about being strategic. Green argues that boldness inspires confidence, both in yourself and in others. Hesitation, on the other hand, leads doubt and fear.
So it's not about being reckless or impulsive. But it's about taking calculated risks, about making decisive moves.
Exactly. He uses the example of P.T. Barnum.
Oh, wow.
The ultimate showman. Barnum used all sorts of bold and often deceptive tactics to get attention and to build his entertainment empire.
Like that time he claimed to have found the 161-year-old nursemaid of George Washington.
Pure Barnum.
It's incredible how he used audacity and spectacle to captivate the public's imagination.
But it's important to note that there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance.
So how do we walk that line? How do we know when to be bold and when to hold back?
It's about assessing the situation, understanding the risks and rewards, and making a calculated decision.
It's about being bold when it matters, when it can make a real difference. Not just for the sake of being showy or attention-grabbing. So it's not just about taking action, it's about taking strategic action.
Exactly. Now, this next law is all about understanding the human element in the game of power. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew.
Ooh, this one sounds a little intense. What exactly does he mean by thumbscrew?
He's talking about weaknesses. Everyone has them. Whether it's a secret desire, a hidden insecurity, or a blind spot in their thinking.
So it's about being observant, about paying attention to people's behavior, their reactions, their vulnerabilities.
It's about understanding what motivates people, what makes them tick, what pushes their buttons. Green uses the example of Daniel Drew, who manipulated the stock market by playing on the greed of his opponents.
Oh, wow.
He would deliberately leak information, create buying frenzies, and then sell his shares
Oh, wow.
at the inflated price.
It's like he understood the psychology of the market, how to manipulate people's emotions to his advantage.
Exactly. And this principle applies beyond finance.
Right.
In any negotiation, in any relationship, in any
Yeah.
power dynamic, understanding the other person's weaknesses
Yeah.
can give you a significant advantage.
So it's not about exploiting people,
Right.
but it's about being aware of their vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
their motivations, their thumbscrews.
Yes.
So you can navigate the situation more effectively.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's talk about a law that's all about rising above negativity. Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge.
This law is all about choosing your battles wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the best way to win is to simply ignore the things
Right.
that are trying to bring you down.
It's about not giving them your energy, your attention, your power.
Exactly. Green uses the example of Pietro Aretino,
Okay.
a Renaissance writer who was exposed for lying about his aristocratic lineage. Instead of getting defensive, he simply ignored the scandal
Wow.
and continued building his reputation.
It's like they say the best revenge is a life well lived.
Exactly.
Right.
Dwelling on negativity only drags you down.
Yeah.
It's far more powerful to focus on what you can achieve,
Right.
to let your success speak for themselves.
So it's about channeling your energy into positive action, into creating something meaningful, rather than wasting it on these petty conflicts.
Right. It's about understanding that you can't control what other people say or do,
Yeah.
but you can control how you react to it.
That's such an important reminder, especially in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with negativity.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get sucked into the drama. But this law reminds us that we have the power to choose how we respond.
Absolutely. Now, this next law is all about being discerning. Law 40, despise the free lunch.
Okay, this one sounds intriguing. What exactly does he mean by despising the free lunch?
He's talking about being wary of things that seem too good to be true. Often there are hidden costs,
Right.
strings attached, ulterior motives at play.
It's like those get-rich-quick schemes that you see online.
Right.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly. Green uses the example of the diamond mine hoax,
Okay.
where wealthy investors were lured into this scam
Yeah.
by the promise of incredible riches.
They wanted to believe it was true, so they ignored all the red flags.
Right, they let their greed cloud their judgment. This law is a reminder to be skeptical, to do your due diligence before jumping into any venture,
Right.
to question the motives of people
Yeah.
who are offering you something for nothing.
It's about being aware that there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's always a cost, whether it's financial or emotional or reputational.
Exactly. It's about being discerning,
Yeah.
about protecting yourself from those who would seek to exploit your trust or your desires.
Okay. This next law is something I think a lot of people can relate to, especially those who are trying to make a name for themselves in a field where there are already these established giants.
Right.
Law 41, avoid stepping into a great man's shoes.
It's a classic problem.
Right.
The son of a famous king struggles to live up to his father's legacy. The new CEO of a successful company tries to replicate the magic of her predecessor.
Right.
It's a tough act to follow.
Green uses the example of Louis XV,
Yeah.
who inherited the throne from the legendary Louis XV.
Right.
Louis XV had all the resources and advantages, but he couldn't escape the shadow of his grandfather.
Yeah.
He ended up being seen as this weak, ineffectual ruler.
Right.
It's like he was doomed from the start simply because he was trying to fill shoes that were too big for him.
Right. And Green's point is that it's often better to forge your own path, to create your own legacy rather than trying to imitate someone else.
So it's not about rejecting your heritage or your influences, but it's about building on them in a way that's authentic to you.
Exactly. It's about finding your own voice, your own style, your own way of wielding power.
Okay, before we move on to the next law, I want to remind everyone to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more insightful book summaries like this.
Now let's talk about a law
Okay.
that's all about targeting the source of power.
Okay.
Law 42, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter.
Okay, this one sounds a little ruthless. Are we talking about actual violence here?
Not necessarily.
Right.
Green is talking about identifying the key players in any system or organization and neutralizing their influence.
So it's not about attacking everyone, but it's about strategically targeting the individuals who hold the most power.
Exactly. He uses the example of Chico Liang,
Okay.
a brilliant strategist in ancient China. He repeatedly captured his enemy, Meng Huo, not to kill him, but to demoralize his troops.
Wow.
Eventually, the troops lost their will to fight because they saw their leader was vulnerable.
It's like he understood that the key to winning a war wasn't about brute force, but it was about breaking the enemy's spirit.
Right. And this principle applies beyond warfare.
Right.
In any organization, in any negotiation, in any power dynamic, understanding who holds the real power is crucial.
So it's about identifying the person who's leading the flock and understanding how to influence their actions or their decisions.
Exactly. It's about being strategic in your approach, understanding that sometimes the most effective way to achieve your goals is to target the source of power rather than engaging in this scattered, unfocused attack.
Okay, so we've talked about striking the shepherd. Now let's talk about a law that's all about knowing when to stop.
You're right.
Law 47, do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop.
This law is all about avoiding the pitfalls of greed and overreaching.
It's about knowing when to quit while you're ahead.
Exactly. Green argues that we often achieve our goals.
Right.
But instead of consolidating our gains, we push for more and more and more until it all comes crashing down.
It's like that saying, don't get greedy.
Right. The book uses the example of Cyrus the Great, whose relentless expansion led to the overextension and eventual decline of the Persian Empire.
It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition.
Right. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest victory is knowing when to walk away from the table.
So it's about being strategic in your pursuits, knowing when to stop, when to consolidate your gains, and when to move on to something new.
Exactly. It's about understanding that true power isn't just about winning. It's about knowing when to stop winning.
Okay, before we wrap up this section of our deep dive into the 48 Laws of Power, I want to remind everyone to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more insightful book summaries like this. We've got tons of other great content coming your way, so stay tuned.
Now let's talk about a law that's all about adaptability.
Okay.
Law 48, assume formlessness.
Okay, this one sounds a little abstract.
Yeah.
What exactly does Green mean by assuming formlessness?
He's talking about the power of flexibility, of being able to adapt to changing circumstances.
Like that Bruce Lee quote, be like water, my friend.
Exactly. Water can flow around obstacles. It can adapt to any container.
Right.
It's both yielding and powerful.
So it's about being adaptable, about not being rigid or inflexible in your thinking or your approach.
Right. The book uses the example of Japan, which has this long history of absorbing and adapting to foreign influences. Instead of resisting change, they incorporated elements of other cultures into their own, making them more resilient in the process.
It's like they understand that the only constant is change.
Yeah.
And the ability to adapt is crucial for survival.
Exactly. And this principle applies to individuals as well. In a world that's constantly changing, the ability to adapt, to be flexible, to assume formlessness is a powerful asset.
So it's not about being wishy-washy or lacking conviction, but it's about being open to new information, new perspectives, new ways of doing things.
It's about being willing to evolve, to change with the times, to assume formlessness in order to navigate the ever-changing landscape of power dynamics.
That's a great note to end on for part 1 of our deep dive into the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from courting attention to assuming formlessness.
Right.
Join us for part 2, where we'll continue our exploration of Robert Greene's fascinating and controversial laws of power.
Sounds good.
All right, see you then.
See you in part 2.
Bye.
Bye. Welcome back to our deep dive into the 48 Laws of Power.
All right.
In the first part, we explored laws about attracting attention and strategic delegation and even using honesty as a tool. But now, let's delve into some laws that might seem a bit more, well, let's just say they require careful consideration.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Which law should we tackle first?
Let's start with Law 1.
Okay.
Never outshine the master.
All right.
This one is all about managing that delicate balance of power in hierarchical relationships.
This feels especially relevant in the workplace.
Absolutely.
Right? You want to impress your boss,
right?
But you don't want to make them feel threatened.
Exactly. It's a tightrope walk.
Right.
Green uses the cautionary tale of Nicolas Fouquet, who was the finance minister in the court of Louis XIV. And Fouquet threw this lavish party, intending to impress the king.
Right.
But it backfired spectacularly.
What happened? Did he, like, forget to invite the king or something?
Worse, he outshone the king.
Oh, no.
Louis XIV.
Right.
The Sun King was known for his extravagance.
Right.
But Fouquet's party was even more over the top.
Oh, wow.
It was like he was trying to upstage the king on his own turf.
Oof. That doesn't sound like a smart move.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
Louis XIV, feeling threatened and undermined, had Fouquet arrested and imprisoned for life.
Wow, talk about an extreme reaction.
Right.
So what's the takeaway here? Should we just play it safe and never try to stand out at work?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's about being strategic. Find ways to make your superiors look good. Highlight their accomplishments while subtly demonstrating your own competence and value.
So it's about being a team player.
Yes.
But also being smart about showcasing your own skills.
Precisely.
Okay.
Make your boss shine and you'll shine in the reflected glory.
Right.
But remember, it's a delicate dance.
Okay, let's move on to a law that sounds a bit intense.
Right.
Law 15.
Okay.
Crush your enemy. Totally. This sounds like something out of like a Shakespearean tragedy or Game of Thrones.
It does have that dramatic flair, doesn't it?
Right.
But Green's point is that if you leave an enemy wounded, they will eventually recover and seek revenge.
So it's about being decisive.
Yes.
About ending conflicts swiftly and completely.
Yes, but it's not necessarily about physical violence.
Right.
It could be about dismantling their influence.
Okay.
Their network, their ability to harm you in any way.
Okay, so it's about neutralizing the threat, whatever form it takes.
Right. He uses the example of Genghis Khan.
Okay.
Who understood that leaving even a small spark of resistance could ignite a larger conflict later on.
So it's about being thorough.
Yeah.
About making sure that the threat is truly neutralized.
Exactly. Of course, this law raises ethical questions.
Right.
It's important to use it with caution and discernment.
Okay. This next law feels like a bit of a mind game.
Okay.
Law 16.
All right.
Use absence to increase respect and honor.
It's about the power of scarcity. We tend to value things that are rare or hard to obtain.
Like those limited edition sneakers that people go crazy for.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
If you're always available, always around, people might take you for granted.
So it's about creating a sense of mystery, of making yourself less accessible.
Precisely.
Okay.
Green gives the example of this Chinese courtesan who wanted to win the heart of the king. Instead of throwing herself at him, she made herself scarce, creating this sense of longing and intrigue.
It's like that old saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Exactly. It's about strategic withdrawal, about creating a sense of demand.
Okay, let's talk about another law that seems a little counterintuitive.
Okay.
Law 17.
All right.
Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability.
Yeah.
This one sounds a little bit Machiavellian.
It can be.
Okay.
The idea is that predictability breeds complacency. If people can always predict your next move, they can easily manipulate you.
So it's about keeping people on their toes, about being a bit of a wild card.
Exactly. The book uses the example of the Confederate General Stonewall Jackson, who was known for his unpredictable movements during the Civil War. His enemies could never anticipate his next move, which gave him a strategic advantage.
So it's about disrupting expectations.
Yes.
About being a bit of a puzzle that people can't quite figure out.
Precisely.
Okay.
Of course, there's a fine line between being strategically unpredictable and just being erratic or unreliable.
Okay. We touched on this earlier, but I think it's worth revisiting. Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself.
Isolation is dangerous.
It's a common trap, isn't it?
Right.
When we feel threatened or insecure, our instinct is to withdraw.
Right.
To build walls around ourselves.
Right.
But isolation can actually make us more vulnerable. It's like that saying, no man is an island. Yeah. We need to be connected to others.
Exactly. For support, for information, for opportunities.
Green contrasts the isolation of the Chinese Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi with the strategic mingling of Louis XIV.
Exactly.
Qin Shi Huangdi, isolated in his magnificent palace, lost touch with his people, and his empire crumbled.
Louis XIV, on the other hand, used Versailles as a way to keep his court under constant observation, gathering information and forming alliances.
It's fascinating how those two examples illustrate the contrasting outcomes of isolation versus connection.
Yes.
It makes me think about how important it is to cultivate a strong network of allies and mentors.
Absolutely.
Right? Having people you can rely on,
Yeah.
people who can offer different perspectives and support, is crucial for navigating the complexities of power dynamics.
For sure.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of connection. Now let's talk about a law that's all about being discerning.
Okay.
Law 19.
Yeah.
Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person.
Yeah, this one feels especially relevant in a world where everyone's connected online.
Right.
It's so easy to offend someone you don't even know.
It's like you have to be extra careful about what you say and what you do because you never know who you might be interacting with.
Exactly. It's more important than ever to be aware of the power dynamics at play in any situation.
Green uses the story of a Chinese prince.
Oh, yeah?
Who was exiled. By his brother, the king. When the prince returned years later, the king tried to make amends. But the prince refused his offer of hospitality.
Interesting.
Why would he refuse a peace offering?
Because he knew his brother was treacherous and unforgiving. Accepting his hospitality would have been a sign of weakness, an invitation for further betrayal. He understood that some people are just not to be trusted. No matter what they say or do.
So it's about reading people.
Yes.
Understanding their character, their history. Don't assume everyone is trustworthy, especially if they have a track record of deception.
Precisely. It's about being discerning in your relationships, understanding who you can rely on and who you need to be cautious around.
Okay, let's talk about a law that seems to advocate for a bit of detachment.
Okay.
Law 20, do not commit to anyone.
This one often sparks debate.
Yeah.
It's not about being aloof or antisocial, but it's about maintaining your independence, your freedom of action.
So it's about not getting too entangled in other people's dramas or agendas.
Exactly. Green uses the example of Queen Elizabeth I, who was constantly courted by foreign rulers but never committed to marriage.
She was a master at playing the game. Wasn't she keeping her options open?
Yes.
Maintaining her power?
Precisely. Yeah. She understood that committing too early to one side or the other would weaken her position.
So it's about staying neutral, keeping your options open.
Yes.
And not letting yourself be used as a pawn in someone else's game.
Exactly. Now, this next law might raise some eyebrows.
Okay.
Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark.
Okay, this one sounds a little sneaky. Are we talking about playing dumb?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
It's about making your opponents feel smarter than you. Lulling them into this false sense of security.
So it's like reverse psychology.
Right.
You make them think that they have the upper hand, and then you strike when they least expect it.
Precisely. The book uses the story of a con man. Who pretended to be a fool to gain the trust of these wealthy victims. He'd let them win small bets, making them feel confident. And then he would clean them out with this big con.
It's a classic bait and switch tactic.
It's about understanding that appearances can be deceiving. Sometimes the most intelligent people are the ones who seem the most naive.
So it's about being strategic in how you present yourself.
Yeah.
About using people's assumptions against them.
Exactly. Now, this next law is all about understanding the power of unity. Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power.
Okay, this one sounds interesting. How can surrendering be a form of power? Isn't it the opposite?
Sometimes surrendering or appearing to surrender can buy you time, allow you to regroup and plan your Nord move.
It's like playing possum. You pretend to be defeated to avoid a greater threat?
Exactly. Green uses the example of a Chinese general who was facing this much larger army. Instead of fighting this losing battle, he pretended to surrender, lulling his enemy into this false sense of security. Then when they least expected it, he launched a surprise attack and won a decisive victory.
So it's about using deception.
Yes.
About turning a perceived weakness into an advantage.
Yeah. Precisely, it's a reminder that flexibility and adaptability can be powerful tools in the game of power.
All right, we've already covered Law 23, concentrate your forces.
Right.
So let's move on to a law that's all about social intelligence.
Okay.
Law 24, play the perfect courtier.
This law is about mastering the art of navigating social circles, especially in environments where power dynamics are at play.
So it's like being a social chameleon adapting to different situations and different personalities.
Exactly. The book outlines a set of qualities that make for a successful courtier, including discretion, adaptability, wit, and the ability to read people's unspoken desires.
It's like being charming and diplomatic, but also being perceptive and strategic.
Right. It's about being valuable to those in power without threatening their position. A perfect courtier understands how to flatter without being obsequious, how to advise without being overbearing, how to influence without being manipulative.
It sounds like it requires a lot of finesse and social intelligence.
It does. But mastering these skills can open doors and create opportunities that might otherwise be unavailable.
Okay, before we move on to the next law, I want to remind everyone to like this video and subscribe to the Book Summary podcast for more in-depth analyses of powerful books just like this one.
Now let's talk about a law.
Okay.
That's all about personal transformation. Law 25, recreate yourself.
Okay, this one sounds intriguing. Are we talking about reinventing ourselves?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
It's about understanding that our identity is not fixed. That we can shape and mold it to suit our purposes.
It's like those makeover shows where they take someone with a frumpy wardrobe and transform them into this stylish trendsetter.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
Green uses the example of Julius Caesar, who was a master of self-presentation. He understood the power of image, symbolism, of creating a persona that would inspire awe and admiration.
Yeah. So it's about being intentional in how we present ourselves to the world.
Yeah.
About crafting an image that aligns with our goals.
Exactly. It's about creating a narrative, a story that people will believe in. A persona that will resonate with their hopes and fears.
So it's not about being fake or inauthentic.
Right.
But it's about being strategic in how we reveal ourselves to the world.
Precisely. It's about understanding that our persona is a powerful tool that we can use to our advantage.
Okay, let's talk about a law that sounds a bit, well, let's just say, sounds like something a politician might be interested in.
Okay.
Law 26.
All right.
Keep your hands clean.
This law is all about avoiding blame, about deflecting responsibility when things go wrong.
It's like those politicians who always seem to have a scapegoat ready.
Exactly.
So,
when a scandal breaks.
Green uses the example of a Chinese emperor.
Oh, yeah.
Who had a minister known for corruption. Instead of confronting the minister directly.
Right.
The emperor appointed a special investigator. To root out the corruption.
So he created a layer of separation, a buffer between himself and the dirty work.
It allowed the emperor to maintain his image of purity and virtue while still getting rid of the problem.
Exactly.
So it's about delegation, about finding others to do the tasks that might tarnish your reputation.
It's about being strategic in how you wield power. Sometimes the best way to stay clean is to let others get their hands dirty.
Right.
Of course, this raises ethical questions about accountability and responsibility.
Okay, this next law sounds a bit like something a cult leader might be interested in.
Okay.
Law 27.
All right.
Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following.
This one is about understanding the human need for belonging, for meaning, for something to believe in.
So it's not necessarily about starting a cult.
Right.
But it's about tapping into people's desires and aspirations.
Right. Green uses the example of P.T. Barnum, who was a master at creating spectacles that captured the public's imagination.
Right.
He understood that people wanted to be fooled, that they craved the extraordinary.
This is about creating a sense of wonder, of mystery, of offering people something they can't find anywhere else.
It's about tapping into their hopes and dreams, their fears and anxieties.
Right.
It's about creating a narrative that resonates with their deepest desires.
So it's not about lying.
Right.
But it's about creating a story that people want to believe in.
Precisely.
Right.
It's about understanding the psychology of belief,
Mm-hmm.
how to create an aura of authority
Right.
and charisma.
Of course, this law can be used for manipulative purposes, so it's important to be aware of the ethical implications.
Okay, that's it for part 2 of our deep dive into the 48 laws of power.
Right.
We've explored some pretty intense laws today.
Yeah.
From crushing your enemies to creating a cult-like following.
Right. It's been a fascinating discussion, hasn't it? Join us for part 3, where we'll delve into the final set of laws.
Yeah.
Including some that might surprise you. Welcome back to our deep dive into the 48 laws of power.
Yes, welcome back.
We've already covered a lot of ground in parts 1 and 2. Exploring strategies for gaining attention and leveraging the talents of others and understanding the nuances of social intelligence.
And we've delved into some of the more controversial laws.
We have.
Like crushing your enemies and creating a cult-like following.
It's been a wild ride.
It has.
But we're not done yet. We still got some fascinating laws to unpack.
Yes, we do.
In this final part of our deep dive.
All right, let's jump right in with Law 29.
Okay.
Plan all the way to the end.
Okay, so this sounds like it's about being strategic, about thinking ahead.
It is. It's about having a clear vision of your goals and then mapping out a step-by-step plan to achieve them.
So it's not just about having a destination in mind. It's about figuring out the best route to get there.
Exactly. And it's about anticipating potential obstacles and having contingency plans in place.
So it's about being prepared for the unexpected.
Right. Green uses the example of a Chinese general who was known for his meticulous planning. He would study maps, terrain weather patterns.
Wow.
He would even send spies to gather intelligence on his enemies.
So he was leaving nothing to chance.
Exactly. He understood that victory favors the prepared.
Right. And this principle applies beyond warfare.
Oh, yeah.
To any endeavor in life, whether you're starting a business or writing a book or even planning a vacation.
Right.
Having a clear plan
can
significantly increase your chances of success.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to Law 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless.
Ooh, okay, so this one sounds interesting. So it's about making it look easy?
It is. It's about projecting an air of confidence and mastery.
Okay.
People are more impressed by those who make things look easy.
Right. It's like those athletes who make these incredible feats look effortless.
Exactly.
It's almost like they're defying gravity.
It's like they were born to do it.
Right, exactly. And Green argues that this principle applies beyond physical skills.
Absolutely.
To any field of endeavor, whether you're a musician or a writer or a business leader.
Right.
The more you can make your accomplishments seem effortless, the more admiration you'll command.
Precisely. It's about concealing the hard work.
Right.
The sweat and the struggle.
The blood, sweat, and tears.
That went into achieving your goals.
But how do we do that without coming across as arrogant or condescending?
It's a delicate balance.
Right.
It's about being humble without downplaying your accomplishments. It's about acknowledging the challenges while also conveying a sense of confidence.
So it's about being authentic.
Yes.
But also being strategic in how we present ourselves.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to a law.
Okay.
That's all about controlling the narrative. Law 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal.
Okay, this sounds like it's about setting the terms of engagement.
It is. It's about being the one who dictates the rules of the game.
Okay.
Rather than being forced to play by someone else's rules.
So it's about being proactive.
Right.
About shaping the situation to your advantage.
Exactly. Green uses the example of a Chinese emperor who was facing a rebellion. Instead of confronting the rebels directly, he offered them a series of choices, each one more unappealing than the last.
Oh, wow.
The rebels were forced to choose between bad options and worse options.
Wow, so it's like you're giving them the illusion of choice,
right?
But you're actually controlling the outcome.
Precisely. It's about limiting the choices available to others so that they are forced to play the game on your terms.
And this principle applies beyond warfare.
Absolutely.
To any negotiation or any situation where you're trying to exert influence.
To business, to politics, to personal relationships.
Right. The more you can control the options, the more power you'll have over this situation.
And that concludes our deep dive into the 48 Laws of Power.
That was incredible.
Yeah, it's a dense book.
It is a lot with insights and strategies that can be applied to every aspect of our lives, from our personal relationships to our careers to the broader social and political landscape.
For sure.
You know, whether you agree with all of Green's laws or not, There's no denying that he's offering a fascinating and thought-provoking look at the dynamics of power.
Absolutely.
And I think the real value of this book lies in its ability to make us more aware of these dynamics so we can navigate them more effectively.
I think that's a great takeaway.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the Book Summary Podcast for more in-depth analyses of powerful books just like this one.
We'll be back soon with another episode ready to unpack more secrets and share more wisdom with you.
All right. See you then.
See you next time.